time to check in with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for another one of our weekly Tacky Talks. How's it going, Tacky?
Hey, good to talk to you on Tacky Thursday, I guess is what we're going to call this. We're on Thursdays.
Sure, why not? It's Tacky Flooding Thursday.
Yes, as we're recording this, it's about 12:08-ish on the computer here, and I'm looking out through my dining room windows. I raise my head slightly to see the kind of very descending fog coming over Blacks Creek Marsh.
Yes, after the torrential downpours, something like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 inches of rain in a couple hours.
Yeah, the phone alert went off this morning, and I didn't realize how bad it was until the phone alert went off because I didn't check the news. I didn't watch the news on the television yet, and yeah, then obviously I hear heavy rain. If we live in Massachusetts, heavy rain's a noise we get used to. And then I checked the window, and Meadowbrook was a little bit of a brook again, because that's where I live, and Blacks Creek Marsh, however, was not flooded, so tide gates must be open to keep the water going out. So I presume the tide is not high out there. I don't have a tide chart with me all the time, but when the tide is low, the floodgates open to get the water out here. When the tide is high, you close the floodgates to keep the ocean from flowing into the marshlands.
Right, yeah, and it brought back memories. I'm sure you remember of 2010 with those devastating floods out in West Quincy.
Well, that was the St. Patrick's Day weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
It was 3 consecutive days of rain with high tide and a high moon. It was like the
Yes.
rain scenario, and it became one of those will sit on top of you storms. They just constantly replenish the water from the ocean and drop it back on the land and just continue the cycle till the wind blew it away. So thankfully it wasn't one of those. And this was in 2017. We had that late nor'easter that just came in and ripped apart the coastline, including
that was ocean flooding. That was terrible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, completely ruined House Neck, Adams Shore, that whole area. Parts of Germantown was completely underwater. So thankfully, we didn't get that kind of high wind because that contributes to pushing the water, the ocean back into us. And that was a late nor'easter, so there was still ice chunks in the ocean that made its way, that started clogging up parts of the marshland, especially the tide gate section, which, how water normally to go out quickly. So I'm sure there's a lot of basement flooding in Queens. I'm sure that DPW is running around getting the water pumps going, and they will help pump out people's houses if you're in really bad shape. I do not have the Quincy DPW hotline right here, but the problem is by the time you listen to us, you're probably already getting help by the time.
That's right. That's right. But it's funny you bring that up. That's kind of a unique service. A lot of municipalities won't help you with. So that's it. At least here in Quincy, there is that.
Yeah, the city does a very good job with that, on helping people on pumping places out. And we have a lot of experience, obviously, doing this over the course of forever, right? Ever since the blizzard of 78. The city's emergency management has always kept upping its game based on the flooding and the snow, and a combination of both, depending on when nor'easter shows up.
Yeah.
It's something that I think the city does a great job at. Obviously, as climate change continues and we live in an ocean community, the city's responses is going to continue to be more and more important. I'm hoping everybody's safe. I mean, there's no other way I can frame it. And you're able to weather this most recent flood event.
Yeah. Anything specifically in your district? Do you know any flood control measures going on, state-funded measures?
No, I mean, the last thing the state really did was partially pay for some of the seawalls along C Street. Those are public seawalls. Actually, I learned many years ago that part of my district, particularly going into C Street, into the neck, some of those seawalls are actually federally paid for as well. So the state, the city, and the feds have, over the many, many, many decades, have been putting money into local coastal defenses. It wasn't until 2017 when literally they were ripping down seawalls. The storm was so bad that there was a major need for a new investment to actually elevate the seawalls.
Right.
Now, how high they can make them that is tolerable is a very good question. It's also another drainage issue. Some of you may be aware, seawater can come back up the drains on the streets, and then you put water back in, it just kind of recycles. This is places like Marshfield, for example, is famous for this. Half the town needs to be on stilts now because literally the drainage system to the ocean recycles the water. The ocean just flows in a circle until the tide changes. So thankfully, we don't have that level of problem, but in most of us is built on what little bit of rock near a marsh, like my house, and some folks are on stilts, like people who know where the Strand is along Queen Shore Drive. I mean that everything along the Strand going northbound is below sea level.
That's right. Yep. We are a coastal community, and days like this just remind you how close the water is.
And I remember correctly, the city has some form of pumping station already out there, but the pumping station is closing in 30 years. So I believe there is one out there. And after the 2010 storms, the city also put in a pumping station, a new one near Arick Road. West Quincy, right. O'Rourke Field. Is it O'Rourke? I think it's O'Rourke. And yes. Because to try to move the water out of there in the bowl, there's a lot of bowls there. And O'Rourke Field is a natural sponge. And then the city also put together a project along French Brook Parkway. You may recall there was a lot of clearing out as you got close to St. Mary's Cemetery. There was a lot of clearing out along French Brook Parkway. The French Brook Parkway actually is co-owned with the city, the state, and private property owners. So it's very, very confusing who owns what pieces. So many different easements going on. But the state city went in, pursuant to DEP approval and all the relative environmental permits to build a longer section of brook to try to create some flood control. But to be perfectly honest, once you reach streams like today, it doesn't matter what your flood control measures are. Nothing's going to save you along any of the brooks. And a very long time ago, Town Brook has a diversion. There's actually two panels to the Town Brook. The main one that goes through Quincy Center, and they have a diversion that goes to the other side to the Marshland. Those built before I got into office, built before I actually got into Mike Marcy's office either. That's how that project is. So when it hits a certain height of Town Brook, the diversion activates.
Yes.
So there's been, as you can tell, there's been many decades of infrastructure improvements, whether in the west part of the city or right along the ocean, to try to get water moving quickly to the ocean, but also try to keep the ocean from coming back in.
Yeah, it's just and that's a constant struggle for most coastal communities, I'm sure, is stormwater management.
It is, it absolutely is. And people, who are far from the ocean, even in Quincy, don't recognize the fact that all drains here do go to the ocean. So don't dump toxic material into the drains because it affects the water quality in the beach, but also the marshland. But when the tide is high, the water just coming onto the land. There's nowhere for our water to go out, which backs it all the way up to West Quincy. So if I'm seeing my marshland, flowing backwards, meaning going in the reverse course, it tells me straight up that West Quincy is going to be underwater, if right. Not already, when I watch the ocean, flow the other way through Tides Creek.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep. So it makes it all that more important, to have coastal resiliency plans in place.
Yeah, and also please check your sub pumps every year if you have one. And remember the fact if you put the water onto the road outside of your house, put it far enough away so it doesn't come back into your house because it just flip around depending on how the wind goes. And be mindful of your neighbors if you're uphill, and try to get it to a drain on the road. That's what I prefer to do. And you try to put into if you have a sink in the basement, obviously you can try to pump it into a sink, but there's a point where even your internal sink can only take so much water trying to get stuff out because the pipes aren't really wide enough to take that much water.
Right. Yeah. And that's connected to the drainage system too. So
yeah, I mean, that's your sewer bill because
exactly.
You use the drains. It's a part of the MWA sewage charge.
Oh, yes. The joys of home ownership.
No, hey, I mean, people don't realize that sometimes that, everything else in sync that contributes to your sewer charge. So that's why we encourage people to try to get to the storm drain on the road, if possible.
Yeah.
If you can do that, that's the best way to handle trying to drain out your area.
Anything going on in Beacon Hill these days, Tacky?
Hearings, and hearings. I mean, there are pretty much hearings every day, minimum 4 days a week, and there are actually some people trying to get some done on Friday. We do have new rules, as you guys have heard me talk endlessly about this at one point about the lack of what we're doing here on rules. But one of the big changes, the House members on the side of the Joint Committee basically can send bills out of the House, and the Senate sends bills to the Senate, and none between will meet, meaning you don't need a consensus of the House and Senate chair to push committees out of joint committee, nor do you need a consensus of the committee as a whole, except in the case of bills filed by the governor. There are no requirements in the joint rules for a consensus by the whole. So, I mean, the House members voted House stuff, the Senate members voted the Senate stuff, which means, that takes away my ability to negotiate with the Senate on Senate bills, as well as he wants to go or she wants to negotiate bills and with me on House bills too, that they may or may not like, and try to engage as kind of a, as you know, horse trading, where not everybody's happy coming out of the room, because that's how negotiation works. You go and try to get to an objective as close as you can on both sides to try to reach a middle ground. That's basically gone. So as a result, I have 60 days to push a bill out as soon as the day hearing. I can get a 30-day extension in 90 days, and our joint Route 10 meeting, all bills have to report out is December 4th of this year. It is also my understanding to have no extension orders, meaning that once December 4th something has to be done. Otherwise, the bill I may go to a study order. So it still may go to a study order, but I'd rather have the chair and the committee send it to a study order than an automatic study order.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on right now.
Will that slow things down? Will that speed things up? A
little bit of both.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
a little bit of both. I mean, because we went so long without an official rules, we were just kind of getting through hearings on temporary rules and kind of a gentleman's agreement and trying to get through the hearing. So I already had 5 hearings before we had joint rules set in place, and have at least another. Let's see, we had one Monday, and we have one coming Monday, and I have 2 in September and 1 October. So there's 5, 2, 2, and 1. So we got 5 more hearings. But let's keep in mind that I have 352 bills, of which I have, let's see, the Senate has I want to say 170 of them. So no, less than 170. I roughly have more than half of them. If I remember correctly, I think I have more than 170. So I got to figure out what to do with these various pieces of legislation in a very, very short time frame. And what it also creates a problem is that normally would I have more time to give some thought.
Yeah.
Using extension or past joint Route 10. Well, that's taken away. So if I don't have enough time to give it complete thought, the odds are good I'm not going to do it, because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, it would be a case of, on paper, things would seem to be moving a lot faster. However, in reality, a lot of things could just be falling off the wayside.
Yeah, it's capacity.
Yeah,
I mean, I do get a lot of new bills, even with small ones. For example, there was some reporting on Status News Service about me asking about private labels done by retail package stores they're selling, and this very peculiar bill, written bill. This took us an hour to look at. I'm like, I'm not sure what this thing does in the end, regarding essentially truth in advertising, regarding that this is a label owned by a retail store in the end. And it was very confusing. It was a very badly written bill and very confusing. And, and I don't know what my capacity is to try to see I can sort out, who's telling me the truth and whether or not this is adversely affecting other distillers, or, whether or not, there is a problem in truth in advertising, whether or not the product is a good product for consumers to buy that's owned by the retail store that you're buying it from. So, I always use like Paul Newman's wine. Paul Newman doesn't make the wine; he just slaps his name on it. The same thing with Trader Joe's. They buy the wine from somewhere else and slap the name on it, right? Kirkland Brands, buy a lot of distilled spirits and also a wine, and they just slap the name on it. They don't make it. They don't own any facilities. Just buy and slap. So I'm not sure what to do with that one still. And the clock started already on Monday, and I got 60 days to make my first decision or try to get a little extra time. But it's July, and December is only 5 months away. It's December 3rd, actually. So I have less than 5 months now to make a lot of decisions with the staff and the committee members on what to do. And how it works is the chair makes a recommendation, and then the committee members, decide how they want to vote. The vote will be made public once it's done. We're just going to throw them on the website. It's going to be inconsistent, folks. Every committee is kind of doing a little bit differently. We want to be able to put one big chart up and just say, here's a chart. Here's the bill numbers, here's the votes. And you can see everyone voting, call it good. Other places are actually doing it individual bills. So you have to look at the individual bill, go to the specific bill, and proceed to click on the bill to find out what the vote is on each bill, as opposed to having a single chart. There's no consistent format here, folks. So I'm just warning y'all now, that's what's going on.
Okay.
But my preference is to be able to just put one thing up at a time, one PDF up at a time, and you can just like peruse at your leisure. But again, every committee is doing it differently. I'm not going to criticize one over the other. I'm just letting the public know that people want to see this stuff. Given the fact that we have no control over IT, this has always been a challenge for us to be able to put these things together the way we should go. But we actually have like zero control over how the website operates. Like I can't get my picture updated. I've asked in March to get my picture updated.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
How old is the picture?
2017.
Okay. Oh, you still look the same, Jackie.
That's a recurring conversation of everyone I know. It's also a bit of a curse. People forget I've been engaged in politics for, as I said earlier this year, 30 years of my life, whether it be working government or knocking on doors or handing out flyers or organizing a phone bank or, trying to find people to come walk the street with me. I mean, I've been campaigning a very long time, and it's not my campaigns, just to mind you all. It's not just my own campaigns. I've worked for a lot of different campaigns in my life, as well as, be an advocate on local issues. At City Hall before I got elected, obviously, I have a policy as a sitting rep not to get into local politics. I do have an opinion like any voter, but I don't go down there to file resolutions and tell a council what to do, and like they do, which sends me resolutions to tell me what I do. Just saying, folks.
But that I'm glad you mentioned that, because that brings up an item that you can comment on that has a local impact, is the Quarry Hills lease extension.
Yeah, that is subject to Bruce Ayers and John Keane. Bruce actually has the Quarry Hills in his district. And what I do understand is a citywide impact. John Keane actually knows the most about this, because while I do know this project, I was not actually around for the very onset as a staff person. John actually knows it intimately, because the city was much more engaged than the state was on the actual development and the agreement between the city and the state. All the state's required to do is that if there's an agreement between the private owner of public land and there's a long-term contract, for said public land, it needs a home rule petition, meaning the council and the mayor votes to allow either authorization for the city to engage in a contract, or they send up an authorization plus conditions on a contract. So the Quarry Hills Granite Links project. Another one comes to mind is the Boston Boston Medical Center and the Quincy Hospital contract. When we transferred Quincy Hospital to the BMC, that would actually involve the Inspector General and the AG's office to ensure that it was properly done. Other examples includes Quincy College regarding trying to change its governing system, because Quincy College is controlled and owned by the city, sort of. They have a council, of trustees, but the trustees are essentially the mayor's appointments for all intents and purposes. So yeah, it's independent but not independent of the city because of the nature of how it's governed. But let's be honest about how that works. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that it's not a mayor-controlled board of trustees. I mean, that's basically how it works in politics. So, in the case of Granite Links, it's about whether or not to extend his lease agreement, further out than the existing one, which I believe there's still 20 plus years remaining to the current lease agreement. And they have a desire to expand again their construction of things like a hotel, which, for the love of Pete, I don't even know how you get traffic in and out of there if you add more facilities. I mean, I went to 2 events up there, the QCAP event and the Work Inc. event. I ended up parking, a quarter mile, half a mile down the road on the main drag and walking uphill, because it was a summer event. I mean, I'm almost going to probably protest going to summer events at Quarry Hills for fundraisers if this continues to be like this. But I mean, they already have a housing unit, as you all have kind of these luxury gated community up there. And the residents are concerned because they're concerned about the current conditions of the ball fields that have been updated, and things like trails along the outskirts of their property was supposed to be constructed for public use, and it doesn't appear that has happened. So there's always concern of valuation, right? If I remember correctly, the city gets a portion of each of the fees for people to play golf there, which isn't actually a terrible deal. Actually, Milton gets a little piece too, because part of the property is in the town of Milton. But the question is that fair valuation relative to to the value of the project. And there is debt, obviously, because the cost of doing capital improvements. It is a golf course. It is a PGA basic standard golf course that hopefully someday they'll get a PGA tournament to go there. Although I still again don't know how anybody's going to get in and out of that place, given how Judy Drive goes. Again, I've done enough drives up there during fundraising events, as you can tell, during spring and summer. I'm like, how? It's like, ugh. I mean, there's just nowhere to park. But I presume a parking garage would have to include whatever hotel they're going to build. So this is kind of a question that I don't have an answer for, as you can tell, because I'm paying some attention here regarding the matter. John Keenan and Bruce Ayers are the ones that are actually leading the issue about Quarry Hills. And the legislature, because we are the legislature, it doesn't rubber stamp home rule petitions. As a guy who does all the liquor home rule petitions, I don't rubber stamp anything. We do scrutinize each home rule petition. We do actually look into the matter. We do ask questions. We do actually amend home rule petitions, inform the city and town about the change to the liquor license, and this is the policy of the committee. I can't speak with the Committee of Municipalities and Regional Government on this because I don't know what their policy is. They get a lot of different diverse issues, from charter changes to these type of lease agreements. So they get a lot of these kind of municipal authorizations. Public service, another committee that gets a lot of local approvals. For example, having fire chiefs and police chiefs in particular to work past the age of 65 temporarily. But they have their own scrutiny process to ensure that this is truly a temporary matter, not not a loophole to a permanent issue to provide a police chief to stay at 70, and truly is a temporary matter. So public safety does investigate.
So
that's true.
So do you know if you'll vote for the lease extension or not?
I'll wait and see what Bruce and John does. These things end up as a delegation vote. So we generally will take advice from who's ever leading the issue in the delegation, and the delegation votes as a block.
Okay.
I've only seen a small number of times when delegations don't vote for a block on a home petition, but it's extraordinarily rare. Extraordinarily rare. And here's another controversial one. Up in Lawrence, they changed the structure of the school committee. It was a real battle between the unions and local government regarding allowing appointed school committee members on the school committee by the mayor. And, it was a delegation vote, which the delegation held, but, some of the folks on the edges that aren't part of Lawrence, were objecting to it. So, we
haven't heard about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Why would it come down to South Shore?
Right.
It's a Lawrence News issue. Another one was we are going to petition up in Lowell regarding using the ball field. They had to use some land transfers for construction of a new school. Super controversial. The delegation was a little bit trying to get their heads around where everyone needed to be. So it does happen, but it's extraordinarily rare that I see any delegation in the state have a split situation. We've seen other electeds meddle in someone else's local issue. I don't go to other people's communities and tell them how to vote on issues. That's the local electeds, and that they answer to the people that live there, not people that live where I live. It's not like I go to Worcester and protest. It's not like people in Worcester vote for me. Do people in Quincy want me to go to Worcester, right? You guys would be unhappy if I was in Worcester protesting a local issue. Like, why am I there? I'd have no business being there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know we've seen some people do things like that. I just scratch my head, like, just don't bother other people's business. So we'll see what John and Bruce does. And they do their reviews on how they do it. And then I'm going to tell you, the speaker myself will fall in line with the delegation once that the leads of the delegation in this issue come to conclusion of where they are.
Okay. All right.
And that's the answers I'm going to give you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's fair. That's more than I was looking for, Jackie. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm paying attention. I am talking to John. I am talking to Bruce. And when John gets the information, he'll update us. John's really good at that, by the way. John's got new stuff to let us know.
What's that?
John's really good. John and Bruce, when they have the information to tell me, they will tell me.
Right.
If they have new information, there's nothing to talk about yet.
Right. And you'll tell me.
Yeah, most likely, yes. At that point, once they end up telling me, they're taking their own risk.
It's out there, so then we can talk about it. Let's talk about the public defender issue going on in Massachusetts right now.
Yeah, you may have seen in news that the public defenders have essentially gone on strike because of the low pay. The last time I recall they were up at the sales was probably well over 12 years ago, looking for a pay increase. Last time we did a judge's pay increase, I think they came in the same time period. It is fixed by law, their hourly rate. And as you can imagine, the cost of doing business is getting more expensive. And many of these bar advocates, of which 80% of all people that take cases for folks that can't afford an attorney, are bar advocates. The independent contractors, they either have their own little firm themselves or part of a little firm. Very few big firms take these cases. There's just not enough money to do it, and they get paid based on the size and district of the court per client per hour. So obviously, like for example, a murder case, if I remember correctly, I think it's like at $150 an hour. That is
It's 120 right now. They want it to go to 150.
150. So it's 120 now. So think about it, guys. I mean, you're defending a defendant in a murder case and you're getting paid 120 an hour. If this was a person with means, you probably could get 4 times that amount.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I see.
So I mean, this is like really work that you gotta want to do. And also, it's a calling for some folks to do this work. And
to help folks who can't afford it.
Yeah, and unlike other countries, in criminal cases, the right to an attorney is something unique to this country. Most countries does not require to give you an attorney, nor is the attorney necessarily on your side. You're seeing sham not just elections, but sham prosecutions in autocratic countries in particular, where the prosecution is, and the defense are basically the same people. So, you do have a right to an attorney, and the attorney has to follow the code of conduct and the BBO regarding making sure that they do the job for the client and the client only, not for the prosecution and not for anybody else.
Right. Like that's partly the judge's responsibility too, right? To make sure they get a fair defense.
That's correct. And also the judge can assign.
Right.
They assign you a defense attorney. They can do that. And they also can have you removed or excused depending on the circumstances. So if you got let's say you're in district court and you picked up like 3 assault and battery cases in one afternoon, and the judge is looking at you like to see if you take a 4th one, and you're like, I'm at 3 already.
Right.
The judge will make a decision like, okay, let's see if we can find somebody else. I mean,
I see.
It's a judgment call, right? I mean, and this is what's happening. You got less bar advocates out there because the pay is terrible and no shortage of defendants. So one of the things that actually happened this past week, which I think is called the Losocco case, Losocco rule. It's like LOSSOCO, something, I can't pronounce it. But it's a rule that was set in place many years ago by the judicial court that if there are no defense attorneys available, the judges will be authorized by the Supreme Judicial Court to be able to release non-violent defendants working with the district attorneys. And this rule was actually implemented in 2020.
Oh, really? Oh, because of the pandemic?
Yeah, because of the pandemic, because everything was shut down, and some of the non-violent offenders couldn't get defense attorneys because, well, there was no courthouse to start with.
Right.
Obviously, close quarters in jail was very problematic.
Yeah.
So the judge, the Supreme Judicial Court initiated this, and the judges work with the DAs to start releasing back out to the public, non-violent offenders. And obviously, you guys already know, I mean, the prisons had the highest infection rates anywhere because it's a prison. And given the public safety issue at the time, a lot of non-violent offenders, were released early from jail as the judges started processing these things with the district attorney and letting non-violent offenders out.
Yeah.
So it's been 5 years since we last implemented this, and it's now been implemented again. And you may have watched in the local news stations interviewing both the bar advocates and some of the defendants released. This could be problematic, down the road if we should pick up more violent offenders.
Do you know about how much of a public defender's business comes from these cases?
You have to talk to the public defender. Well, actually, bar advocate is a difference. Public defenders are paid by the state directly on salary.
Okay.
Bar advocates are outside contractors. Like 80+% of all cases are bar advocates, the vast majority. So if you're like a starting attorney, let's say just, starting attorney, let's say you were an ADA for a while, you got out of it being an ADA, you want to do defense work to get your practice going, you may be almost 100% doing this work, maybe.
I see. Okay.
And then over time, you start diversifying your work. Or you and maybe 3 buddies, for example, put a good little firm, and each year take like 25% of your cases as a bar advocate and 75% something else. So
Gotcha. I
it's
see.
really like a business model, and for some attorneys, this is a good start point for them
Yep.
because there's always going to be work. And
Right. Yep.
and they like independent contractors, so the state doesn't pay their health insurance, doesn't pay any kind of social security, pay nothing, and they would either do it through their personal corporation or LLC or S corp, or they maybe just hang a shingle and use those social security number as a personal self-employed. So
Right. So they'd have to pay taxes, take taxes on that themselves.
correct. I mean,
Yep.
I can't speak to this because everybody is different regarding how they want to run their practice, and
Yep.
there's a lot of different ways in which you can set up your practice.
Yep.
And if you want to add this type of work as part of your practice, that's an individual attorney's decision on how they want to run their business. And
Yep. I get you. Yep.
as time progresses, some bar advocates start diversing their business away from just doing bar advocate work and do more other types of work in their practice. And it's good because diversification of bar practice helps you out depending what economic period we're in.
hmm
I was taught in law school, at least know three areas of law. One, pedestrian. Pedestrian mean things like bar advocacy work or wills or property transactions or
I see.
something that's always going to be there. That's how I was taught in law school. Always learn three areas of law minimum.
So that's okay. So that's pedestrian. What else?
I mean, try the other pedestrian type stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Like estate planning, things like that.
estate planning, small business transactions,
Okay.
consumer protection laws,
Yeah. Contractual law, stuff like that.
contractual laws, that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of paper pushing, but there's always a business for it.
Yes. Right.
And
Okay.
like I said, everybody's different.
Guaranteed work, right? Yeah.
Guaranteed work, and everybody's different. Some people may not want to do real estate transactions. I did a few, and I don't really like doing them.
Yeah.
I found out I didn't like doing them.
Yeah.
I don't remember how to do one. It's been such a long time since the last one, but I remember doing it. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. So I mean, people kind of find the ones they like to do, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
and even me, I mean, I do understand wills, estates, and trusts well enough, but don't expect me to, write you like a very complex family family
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah.
You
It's
know.
like doctors, right? They like to specialize in a certain field.
Yeah, and more recently, I've gone into personal injury cases. So,
Okay.
for full disclosure, I'm at Bo Shaughnessy Law Firm. It's something people forget. I am a lawyer. People always forget that about me. And one of the areas that I work on is personal injury cases now. So, thankfully I work. Well, actually, I'm really contracted. I'm one of those guys. I'm not a former full employee. I'm a contracted employee.
Gotcha. Okay. But for the bar advocates, as I understand it, it's up to the legislature to change the pay. Is that right?
That is correct. We have to change the statute, change the pay. And this is a recent issue. So honestly, I just started getting bar advocate emails about this less than 2 weeks ago. So it's fairly new for us. And given how, again, it's actually pre and post COVID, right? I mean, how people engage the legislature pre-COVID, post-COVID is still very different. Pre-COVID, the bar advocates would show up in our offices, make appointments to come visit. They'll be organized in a manner where, they would somehow figure among themselves to organize an effort to come in and talk about their problems and get someone to file a bill and come testify on bills and send testimony on bills and do all that. Nowadays, they just send me a bunch of emails with saying, please give us a raise.
Oh, interesting.
You don't even know where they're from, don't even state anything about stuff.
Because there's no union, right?
No, there isn't. I mean, they're kind of a loose association.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a formal association, is my understanding. But I mean,
maybe that's the next step. Yeah.
Well, maybe it is the next step. It's their decision to make as a collective. But I mean, again, it's a very different world, right? I mean, same thing happened with vocational schools. No one, I mean, I'm getting these emails. No clue what it is from the Vocational School Association. No clue what it means. No context. Like literally no context. I'm getting stuff, and they don't. I mean, no one locally is talking to me about this at the city level because city government now has a VOTEC school in Quincy High School.
Right. Yeah.
And this whole, lottery system. And they think that, we'll send you a newsletter. That means we're advocating. I'm like, that's not.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I'm running the same problem here with bar advocates. They're sending just me emails with either like 10 files of PowerPoints, of which I may understand some, maybe not understand some.
Yeah.
And other folks just write down, we need more money, period. And that's it.
I'll have to try that here. See how that goes.
Well, there's also the form letters, right? I get.
Yeah, but see that to your point though, that's it negates the relationship aspect of trying to get things done, right?
Yeah, and at least as you can tell, I know a little bit. I mean, I was here for the last pay raise when we changed the statute. But if you're newly elected and you
Yeah,
get a bunch of these emails says, give me more money,
yeah,
the new elected's gonna be like, huh?
yeah. Well, it's making a lot of assumptions that you already know who they are and what they do. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of joke about this all the time, but I mean, lawyers should know the law, right? And the law is changing the law on your how your pay works. It means you have to
Mhm.
talk to legislators, but you also have to talk to the governor's folks because obviously you have to bake it into this budget and future budgets because this
Right.
pay increase can fluctuate in terms of the budget amount depending on the number of cases per year,
Oh,
right?
okay,
I mean,
interesting.
every year is a different volume of cases.
So it's not a flat rate?
It's a flat rate, but the budget of paying
Oh,
them
right. I see what you're saying.
depending on
Yeah,
how many cases they have.
gotcha.
So
Okay.
high volume year cases means that we have to put out more money in the budget because they're taking more cases.
Gotcha.
Low volume case year means that we're paying less in the budget because of
Mm.
low cases. So I mean that's something that is beyond my understanding.
Mhm.
That between CPCS Council of Public Council,
Yeah, that's right.
Public
That's the acronym. I forget what it
Council,
stands for.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also involving the governor's folks. So
Yes.
wait and see what we hear from the governor's people. And
So how would it work? Would there have to be a supplemental budget just for that line item?
yeah, I just would have to move in tandem with SOP most likely. What they'll do is that they'll change the statute and fund it simultaneously.
Gotcha.
Doing something like this, if you change the statute as a separate bill and pass in the law, there's no funding mechanism to go into it other than the
Right.
budget, and the main budget will be drained faster because obviously the pay's increased.
Yeah.
So these things really have to move together.
Okay. So
So
where would the money come from?
baseline budget.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's gonna be baked into the baseline budget. I mean, just as simple as that. So,
Mhm.
anything they do is not like magic money out of the sky. It's a part of our budget means that we're gonna have to make yet another adjustment or hope that revenues, are high enough that,
Cover that, yeah.
And given the fact that you're considered essential service because they are an essential service, that line item needs to be paid.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
It isn't like an optional one for us. It needs
Yep.
to be paid.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's not a luxury. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an optional service. So, wait and see how it plays out. I really don't have a straight answer for it yet. We're waiting to see what the governor's response to the bar advocates are. And if she has interest, she'll share people will have to do the budget numbers on her side to see what the budget increase would be for the fiscal year.
I see.
They can file a supplemental budget with language change, and then House Ways and Means to scrutinize it after that, to scrutinize the governor's numbers. But the governor takes first move regarding the numbers are.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for that explanation, Tech. I appreciate that. This is probably news to a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've seen it in news, but I think there's a bit of a simplified context of why this is important.
Well, out of necessity, just to help folks understand it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very important issue. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong. But I think sometimes the media doesn't. It's so difficult to try to explain this in 20 seconds.
I know. I know.
Why it's important to you.
That's why we have Tacky Talk.
That's why we're here. We're tacky to see how much I can yank out of my brain.
That was very good. I am impressed.
Yeah, I've not looked at the statute in a while, but I do know it's an hourly rate. And like I said,
Yeah.
the last few times they come to Beacon Hill. So, but again, life's changed 5 years from start of COVID. So, it's far from what life was before, in my opinion, regarding how things happen on the Hill.
Interesting. Yeah. So some things have not gone back to the way they were.
No, I'm saddened by that actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy there's advocacy days coming up, and we had a Narcan trading day in the State House this week. We had Enterprise Business Day come in the State House. There's like a birthday for the Dalai Lama coming up in the State House. So we are having some events back, but these important issues too. I mean, everything's important to everyone. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Things like the bar advocate issue, should have been, something flagged of us sooner. And it's not like there's no shortage of attorneys in Quincy. And, they're also Quincy residents. So, I mean, I'm talking about you this on July 10th. I mean, just saying.
Right. After the figures, the 1 year you finalized the budget early.
Exactly. And in the budget, as you all have been seeing in the news, there's actually a budget lower than the original governor's recommendation by almost 900 billion,
Yeah.
900 million. So almost $900 million shorter of the original governor's request, and the governor vetoed 130 million. So just under $1 billion smaller than the governor's original recommendation.
Yeah.
Which I think you all know at this point is because we're waiting to see the impacts on the federal government, which also affect bar advocates and ability us to pay the bar advocates. On the shift costs, and I said this nonstop all year so far. My fear of shift cost on federal programs under the state, which is not a state program, which the federal government pays for, which the government pays for those employees to work it, of which we will have to pick up the cost, and whether or not we are able to pick up the cost.
Yeah, I know we talked about this last week, Medicaid, and the SNAP program, right?
Just to start.
Yeah.
There is a lot more than that. For example, yeah, and then some stuff that isn't really state related. For example, they changed the law regarding gambling losses. So right now, the IRS code is that you can actually deduct your losses from your winnings. You have 100% winnings, you have 100% loss. Well, you had zero net gain, you don't pay taxes. Well, this is a little bit for those of you who like to gamble that's listening. In your federal taxes now, you're going to take 90% of your losses, meaning you're guaranteed you must pay taxes somehow.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if you lose $100 and you win $100, you can only take can deduct $90 out of the 100 winnings.
Oh, okay. So you pay on the $10. You pay taxes on the $10 profit. Huh. Interesting.
It's not really profit.
Well, right. Not if you're paying taxes on it. Yeah.
Right. You're at a zero-sum gain.
That's right. You broke even.
Yeah, you broke even.
But you broke even.
You broke even and now paying 10% taxes.
So you really are losing.
You are losing even more. So, yeah, thank Republicans for this, people. If you're a gambler and you use the federal tax code to try to, you have a bad year,
yeah,
you figure you can take a tax loss against your winnings and come up zero or negative.
Yeah.
You cannot come up zero or negative anymore.
Yeah.
You always pay a minimum tax now to the federal government on your gambling. Period.
I wonder if that'll impact lottery revenues.
No, people consider play. It adversely affects professional gamblers, obviously. Professional gamblers are the ones that hit hardest.
So Vegas might be concerned, yeah.
Yeah, Vegas might be concerned. But I mean, even for casual players, I mean, if you win $500 and you lose $1,000, you end up still going to have to pay some taxes somehow, depending on what the offsets are.
Right. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So these little fine print areas.
Yeah, you're going to have to take a big loss, a bigger loss to not pay taxes on your winnings.
Right. Where it pays to lose.
Hey, look, Republicans just raised taxes on gamblers in this really roundabout way. So, I mean, like I say, people say all things about different political parties regarding the stereotypes and being in silos or categories. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're always going to be false. People love their stereotypes about political parties. So I'm going to tell you they're always going to be wrong. And this is an example of one. So, right, the Medicaid shift, I don't know how much it's going to cost. Everyone's throwing all kinds of numbers out. No clue what it's going to be yet. SNAP, Project Hunger is our advocacy regarding SNAP programs. They're projecting perhaps $400 million, maybe, to the state. They're projecting somewhere between 20 and 25,000 legal residents, legal immigrants, and refugees here are going to lose their SNAP programs immediately. Meaning that the state has to make a decision whether or not we're going to fill that backfill for legal residents and immigrants. There's going to be mass health impact on also legal immigrants as well.
Yeah,
they're going after permanent resident card holders, green card holders hard. And for those who have been live long enough and we pay attention to this Twitter thing, we've been here before. It's called 96 to 98 in the Contract of America. Congress repealed housing benefits, mass health benefits, or Medicare, Medicaid benefits, all kinds of benefits to legal refugees and immigrants. Green card holders got smacked really hard that year. So, over a 3 to 4 year period, that Republican Congress back then did a massive peelback on government benefits, particularly people that cannot vote. Big surprise, right? But
do pay taxes.
They do pay taxes, but they can't vote. No taxation about representation does not account for people that are permanent residents.
Right. And what was the result from that move?
Well, when you got to like the 2000s, some of it started to peel back because you had a change in party.
I see. Okay.
But they never ever quite fully restored all those programs from 96 to basically 98.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, 99. It was a 3-year kind of disassembly. So, I mean, the state at the time backfilled as much as they could and put it into the baseline budget.
Yeah.
And then the 03 recession hit, the 08 recession hit, and then everything kind of seized up and froze in place. Then we also had
Yeah.
a situation which everything freezed up and seized in place because we didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer for you because I don't know what to do.
Well, because you don't have a final tally yet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting for the final tally once it's
Yeah.
implemented. And and I just don't know what to tell you yet. I mean,
And I think the governor said earlier this week, public education's taking a big hit as well. Not so much in Quincy, but some rural school districts.
yeah, they're going after the most vulnerable populations to have the lowest voter turnout. I mean, look, politics ain't complicated, people. I mean, you gotta start hurting people. You hurt the people that can't vote first. It's like a fundamental rule in federal politics. They've been doing it for like 100+ years.
Because they can't hurt you, right?
They can't hurt you because they can't vote.
Right.
Duh. That's why they go after them first. It's easy when they're non-voters. That's why they used to go after people with disabilities. Those of you who before 1980 may remember, government intentionally didn't do anything with people with developmental challenges or disabilities or autism or dyslexia. Nothing. Why? Because they're a low voting population or couldn't vote. Right? I mean, this is a pattern of behavior, not uniquely to the United States.
Right.
Any form of democratic structure knows, what's the most vulnerable population in politics, and the ones that cannot vote or unable to vote, are the ones that get shafted.
Well, then they'd better take a look at Social Security because those folks vote.
Well, and also they pay Social Security. Permanent residents pay Social Security, right? They pay taxes. I mean, I love Republican talk of taxation, no taxation without representation. Yeah, well, you got a whole segment of population of HB1 visa guys, work visa folks, student visas, tourists. Tourists don't count; they're temporary people. But you got permanent residents, you got refugees. They all pay taxes.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't want to ever hear from anybody taxation about representation argument that was created during the American Revolution 249 years ago, which made more sense when it was pretty much, predominantly white males who owned property who had all the money. So, I mean, that's not the world we live in today. People live like that are living in a time warp. I mean, complain about Biden and Trump because they're two presidents living in a time warp. It's just who they are. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how this plays out. Maybe next time we chat, we'll have more information. And,
Right.
for Mass Taxpayers Foundation to give us analysis. I'm waiting for the progressive mass, what's it called? Mass budget policy, whatever. I mean, I'm waiting for the different advocacy groups, whether it be SNAP, healthcare, housing, homelessness, environmental groups. We're waiting for all the different groups to get the analysis done because to get the national stuff done, they have to do it state by state. And then people may not realize just because Congress passes law, you still have the regulators in DC that actually has to implement these laws. And we have to wait for example, what the Dr. Oz, who runs Medicare, Medicaid now, and his team decide how to implement the bills, how to implement this, what the implementation process is going to be, how they're going to implement it, how much flexibility under law do they have regarding implementation. We don't know. We have to actually do their jobs. And also the question, do they have anybody to work? Because they just did massive layoffs all over the place and then rehired a bunch of people, and then a lot of people left on their own. So who knows what the staffing condition is. I mean, today the president decided to going to make this Secretary of Transportation also the head of NASA temporarily. I mean,
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, that happened this morning.
Okay.
It shows the lack of people to have working, or they're actually not working because the president's making more decisions personally. It's very, I know you can't have this many people doing this many hats at one time. It doesn't.
No, yeah, I don't want a, auto mechanic doing heart surgery.
Well, secretaries, as over the years, doesn't always. And it's not always the expertise of the person that actually do the work.
Right.
about it. I'm not going to pretend and say they got hired all these people that are like professionals in the position they're in. I'm not a fool. I mean, this happens in any administration. Doesn't matter what administration we're talking about. So let's not delude ourselves there. However, these are big jobs, and transportation secretary is a big job. And the more time you take away from a secretary in a big job to another job, you don't get their full attention and their ability to do the job the best they can.
Right.
Particularly when it's that volume.
Yeah. Yeah. So any vacancies at the state level, Taki? I know we talked about that a while back, but some of the
Secretary House position, Econ Dev has been filled. Secretary Walsh, Health and Human is getting to depart at some point soon. Commissioner Brian Riggio has left the DCR formally now. I heard he's going to UMass Lowell teaching position, I believe. They hired a mayor from East Hampton, I think.
Oh, okay.
Look at the email again. To replace Commissioner Riggio, which is actually interesting because at the DCR system, the part that actually has the most work needed is the urban centers, not the rural centers. The Riggio was great because he's from Chelsea. He knows the DCR system because he's from Chelsea.
Yeah.
Mayor approach to infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you have a person from the western part of the state, like Deep West, coming to an urban system. Let's see how this works out. So,
okay.
Look, we don't know until they try, and until they try, I can't tell you if it's good or bad. So,
yeah, well, that's true, and always opportunity to learn. If you're a good learner, you might do well.
And it's a big job.
Yeah.
People think a DCR is like a small gig. It's a huge job. It is like running a city that's inside other cities.
Yes. Oh, yes. I can't imagine how much property that falls under, and millions of acres, I would bet.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So it gets a little crazy. So I mean, we're also like year 3 in this governor's administration, and just like normal clockwork, people who do not want to stick around for the next election are exiting now.
So everything's normal then.
Pretty much. I mean, the history of working at the highest levels of any government, state or federal, is that as we move into election cycle, people tend to get ready for greener pastures because they don't want to be around during election cycle.
Oh yeah, you see that at the federal level as well.
Yeah, all governments, the state and federal level, does the same thing. Year 3 is when you see the massive changeover.
Yeah, I mean, you'll even see it at the municipal level if things look like they're going to change.
Which I will also, since you brought it up, send best wishes and congratulations, and all my fondness for Bob Hilland in Weymouth.
Oh yeah,
who's quitting on July 15th, and get his pension, and I'm hoping he has a happy retirement. I knew the mayor from when he was a senator for many years, when he worked in the Senate, just 2 doors down from him. I have a lot of Bob stories like everybody else. But Weymouth's actually in great shape overall, given all the different challenges Weymouth has over 9.5 years. And I know it's very unusual to see a mayor depart midterm, but I also give a lot of credit to Bob to know when it's time to go. When it's time to go, it's time to go. And Bob Hilland wisely decided that this was the moment. So regardless of whether his term was up or not. So, some folks, as you've seen in our lives, sometimes linger in elected life a little too long. And they don't realize they're ready to go. And that includes me. When I'm ready to go, I'm gone. Trust me. I've watched enough other elected officials. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in my life now. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. So best wishes, Bob. Wish you happy and enjoy whatever next comes along, but most importantly, well into almost 4 decades of public service.
Yes, if you consider the State House too.
Yeah.
All righty, we're at the end of our hour, not the end of your term though.
No, I am running for election, so I might as well do the speaker thing. Ask me now. Yes, I'll be running for election in 2026.
I think we already talked about that, but okay.
Yeah, might as well just get ahead like Speaker Mariano did. Yeah, we'll get ahead of the game and tell everybody running for office now. So don't get any ideas, folks. I'm not going anywhere quickly yet, because I still think we have things to do, and I am having a good time, despite my frustrations, as you all hear. despite the fact I think it's going to be a very tough year to be a politician, be a legislator, making very hard decisions. But and you all know it, everything keeps hitting me at 1,000 miles an hour, and just got as long as I can keep up catching the balls, I think I'll be okay. But as we all know, eventually you get a little slow in your game and you can't catch all the balls, and you got to make a decision if it's time to go. But we're far from there yet. And obviously, I love spending time talking about whatever. So here as my full Boston accent comes to fruition at this end of a show.
That's what we're here for, Jackie, to let you talk about whatever.
Well, hey, if anybody's out there from a production company is looking for a real Boston accent, you got a little Asian guy over here that's pretty good at it.
Hey, you never know.
Actually, I do speak like that when I'm relaxed. When I'm talking to you guys and others, I work actually very hard to ensure my best ability to articulate the best I can.
Yes, it is an effort, though. I fully sympathize.
A lot of practice over the course of my life to actually articulate.
Yes, so I had to go to school to get rid of my accent.
Ooh, you were that bad, huh?
It was that bad. Well, it was part of the curriculum going through broadcasting.
Little trivia. I did I did voiceover class before.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I've done
Voice and diction and enunciation and accent elimination. Oh, gosh, yes. Those
And
were the
timing.
days.
And timing, you gotta hit the marks.
Correct. Yes.
You don't realize voiceover work has a big part of hitting the marks
For
and
sure.
still sound like you can actually understand what the person's saying.
Yes.
So another part of my trivia life.
Let's let folks know how to get a hold of you.
Sure, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the office number, room 42. We are staffed. It is the summer. Come visit us for tours. I love seeing people come for tours. If you give us a heads up, I'll probably come meet you. I'm actually in the office about 3-4 days a week right now, depending on the meeting schedule. So maybe randomly you find me, even though it is the summer. I'll actually probably do that part of August too. We are on State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook, and we are moving off of X now because our numbers are showing that no one really uses it as much regarding seeing me. So we now have an Instagram account connected to my Facebook account, which I don't know what their tag is because the staff just set it up this week.
Okay.
So we are migrating off Twitter, folks, and we're heading to Instagram like everybody else. I'm really late to social media. And it'll be connected to our Facebook. So if you've watched my Facebook, our State Representative Tacky Chan, don't feel like you missed anything on Instagram. We're gonna link to two. TackyChan.org is our resource page, m8legislature.gov, which I, again, every week encourage people to sign up at m8legislature.gov so you can track your bills about me. And you can watch the hearings and sessions. You do have, that'll lose my train of thought. We do have QATV here with you every week or so. And obviously email tacky.chan@mhouse.gov, tackey.mhouse.gov. Testimony emails coming hot and heavy, but I'll find your email eventually in the pile. There's so much email I'm getting right now. And then obviously check with Joe in the morning for his 10-minute updates. And also very quickly want to say great seeing everyone this July 4th weekend. As you guys know, I do Adam Shore, Germantown, and the Marymount Parade. It was good to see everyone on a actually not too awful Friday. It was actually hot, but not insane.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was really lovely, actually.
Yeah, no, I had a great time seeing everyone.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jackie.
Take care, Joe. See you in a week or so.